Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky was born in 1840 in a little town many miles east of St. Petersburg. He and his brothers managed to get a very sound, very solid education from their family governess. He was a very intelligent, very bright lad. By the time he was 6, he could read and write French and German. And it was about that time that they discovered he had perfect pitch and an amazing musical memory, that he could recall things after hearing them just once. And he later made a statement that he started composing as soon as he found out what music was all about, and that was when he was 4. His parents used to take him to concerts, and after one concert, he complained that he couldn't get to sleep because the music was in his head so strongly he couldn't get it out of there. When he was just 14, his mother, whom he adored, died of cholera. This was the first big traumatic experience in his life, and he never really recovered from it. His father wanted him to be a lawyer, and where have we heard that routine before? So Tchaikovsky dutifully obeyed, and he went and studied law and jurisprudence. And not too long after that, he had the great good fortune to meet two of the finest musicians in Russia at the time, Anton and Nikolai Rubinstein. They were brothers who were both composers, and in 1862, Anton opened the first formal music school in Russia, and Tchaikovsky became the first ever composition student there. His early works at this time, they're very technically secure, very well put together, but not terribly memorable musically. 4 years after that, Nikolai founded the Moscow Conservatory and invited Tchaikovsky to come and be a professor of composition. And it was while he was there that he began to write some pieces that you can just hear the beginnings of his wonderful, unique compositional style. One of his young students at the conservatory fell madly in love with him, and in spite of the fact that he knew good and well by that time what his sexual orientation was, he nevertheless agreed to marry this young lady, and it turned out to be an absolute disaster. He even thought seriously about committing suicide on a number of occasions. There was in Russia a lady named Nadezhda von Meck, who was the widow of a very wealthy Russian industrialist. She'd always loved Tchaikovsky's music, and she decided that she wanted to support him financially on one condition, that the two of us never meet. And in fact, they never did. And it was about this time, we're talking now late 1870s, that his popularity was at a tremendous high. And in 1890, suddenly, Madame von Meck ended the financial support. He didn't need the money, but it was devastating to him, and once again he went into a depression. In 1891, he came on a tour of the United States. In August of that year, he took part in the festivities surrounding the opening of Carnegie Hall in New York. He also, right after that, created his last great ballet, which was the Nutcracker. In October of 1893, he conducted the premiere performance of his 6th symphony, the famous Pathétique Symphony. 1 month later, November of that year of 1893, he died. 53 he was when he left us, but still, he was one of the greatest creators of melodies we have ever known. I'd like to conclude this by a comment that he made about himself toward the end of his life, which I think is very telling and very instructive. He said, "To be unhappy with the past, to be optimistic about the future, but to be continually dissatisfied about the present, that is how my life passes."